Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Well, come on in here and sit down with me, and let's get started today as we begin a new section in the Psalter. We've concluded now Psalm 119. We did all 176 verses and how wonderful 119 was. And now we're going to begin a new section called the Ascent Psalms. And they're called the Ascent Psalms is because that's how they're titled. So we haven't had a title in a while. Maybe forgotten about titles, but there's a title to each one of these, and it is a song of ascending or a song of going up. Each one of these, beginning here in 120, and going all the way through to 134, so 15 psalms, has that title, and they are songs of ascent. The Septuagint has song of ascent, song of steps or stairs, and the idea here is that it's a pilgrim song. This little collection of songs was a song book, perhaps. The Jewish pilgrim would sing these songs as they made their pilgrimage to the temple, because remember, 3 times a year every male was to appear before the Lord, and they would go from their homes and they would travel to Jerusalem, and so they had this little song book. I've called it in the past a travel log, because it begins someplace and it ends someplace. So we start somewhere and we end, and the ending place is Jerusalem. Some people have said that these songs were to be sung at a festival time when the pilgrim would come into the city and they would walk up the 15 steps into the court of the temple. So there are 15 steps, and on each step they would stop and they would sing the psalm related to that step. So the very first step they would sing Psalm 120. That's okay. I could see that as well. But I just like the fact that this paints a picture for us of the psalmist as he travels to Jerusalem for whatever festival he was going to, and he's writing these psalms as he goes along the way. We begin with, here in Psalm 120, the furthest out. So the psalmist he's wherever he is, and he tells us actually where he is. He tells us that he's in Meshech and in Kedar, and we'll talk about those places when we get there. In verse 1, which I'll read today, let me go ahead and read that. To the Lord in my distress I cried, and he answered me. So you see, not only is it physical location, but it is also a spiritual location, a soulish location. He's distressed, and so he cries out to the Lord. This is also an ascent of the believer back to God. This is the idea of that I'm somewhere out here in sin, and suddenly my heart is pricked. I remember the goodness of God to me, my salvation, and instead of backsliding now, I turn away from my corruption, and I begin my trek back to His presence. So it can be a travel log with a physical location beginning and ending. It can be songs that are sung in the temple as they walk up the steps. It could be that this is a spiritual location and relocation of the psalmist as he makes his way back to the Lord. All of these are possibilities, and all of them can be possibilities at the same time, that the psalmist had all of this in mind when these psalms were written. Now, every one of these, no, there's one that's titled by David. So we'll say that most of these, am I going to be right when I say most of these? I'm going to look at real quick. Let me peek. Let me say many of these are orphanic psalms. We have 2 here of David, I see. There's one here by Solomon. So yeah, these are mostly orphanic. Nobody's, we have no name given to it whatsoever. But this is the way it's written. And as I said again, a little hymnal, a little travel hymnal for the pilgrim as he comes back to Jerusalem. a little travel hymnal for the backslider as they return to the Lord, a hymnal to prepare the heart for the worship of God during one of the festivals of the Lord. Amen. So tomorrow, join me tomorrow. We're going to look at verse 2, and we'll review verse 1 again here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.